Well, I've got the great opportunity today of interviewing a good mate of mine, Ollie Wood from PWD. Been itching to ask him a few questions about his business.
Sure.
And I wanted to take the theme today of a bit of the Michael Gerber theme, the E-myth, the entrepreneurial seizure.
Yep.
We have a number of clients at our business, seeing you operate from the sidelines. One of my first questions for you was just tell me a little bit about your story, about how you experienced that entrepreneurial seizure. You know, working for someone, thought you could do it better, and went out on your own. Can you run us through how that went for you?
I mean, for me, I was, I guess, probably forced into entrepreneurship. My dad's always worked for himself, and I guess seeing how stressed and how turbulent entrepreneurship can be, it probably wasn't actually something I really wanted to be. But I was also a bit of a rebel at school and never really played by the rules per se. So I came over here when I was 22. I was a backpacker, did a lap of the country, ran out of money, ended up in Perth, sold the van. I was on a 457 visa at the time. And I worked for a company called Saab. Saab obviously went under. I lost my job, lost my visa, didn't collect 200, didn't pass go, had to go back to London. And I was stuck in this quandary that I then needed to be a self-funded international student because my parents had got divorced, dad had moved to Spain, mum had moved off somewhere, didn't have a great relationship with her. My whole family life had essentially evaporated before my eyes. And I was signed up to be an international law student, and I needed to make a crust. So I started the business. I employed myself. I could only work 20 hours a week because I was a student. And so I was sort of forced into it, and it was incredibly humble beginnings. It was, one of those big button phones from Harvey Norman and a copy of the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
And I started dialing businesses, and this was 17 years ago, sort of 2007. And I started offering them web and marketing services, which I had a bit of a background in. I did that for BT, British Telecom in the UK for a couple of years, but only in a sales role, not in an implementation role. But I was always quite, I liked technology, and I was a bit of a probably geek. 7, 8 years old, I could set up a computer network and stuff. So that's where I got to. And I was forced into it because of the GFC. I couldn't get a visa, couldn't get a job. Nobody wanted to. People kind of knew something was going wrong with the economy, but didn't quite know what it was at that point. So I was forced into being a business owner, entrepreneurship, and it's been a wild ride.
Mm-hmm. Gerber's book came out in about 1986, if I recall, and he would put up his little org chart. Typically, you'd have your name in all the little boxes. Tell us, if you can remember, when you were taking some of those earlier steps as you're rolling forward.
Yeah.
As funds allow, how did you go about the decision to have to just fund bringing somebody in versus stepping off doing things yourself? How did that happen?
Yeah, scary. Because I remember hiring my first employee, and at the time I probably only had $5,000 or $6,000 in my bank account, and had to make the choice that I needed to start replacing myself and needed to scale. And, I think that would have been his salary for the month back then. And Andrew Evans, I think his name was. I actually think he works for one of my major competitors these days, but he's done very well for himself.
Yep.
Started a family, and I'm quite proud of him. But that was the leap of faith. And I then got a few people, started working from home, and I thought, well, I'll focus on what I know I can do, which is bring in business. And, those guys to kind of run it and scale up from there. And I do remember having a conversation with my dad, because he came over and went, Oliver, you got to really make a decision. Do you want, to get bigger? Because it's a train on a track going one way.
Yeah.
And you can't put the brakes on, you can't hold it back. You have to keep going. And once you've made that decision, there's no stopping. And he was very right. And I still struggle with it today, because it's about letting go. It's about going, well, okay, you might be able to do something better, but you've only got a human capacity of 100%. And 5 or 6 people working at 70% or 80% of perhaps what you would do. And I am, by nature, I am a control freak for sure. I like things done a certain way. I have a high attention to detail. fastidious. So that was and it still is today. I still find myself doing stuff which is just way below my pay grade without trying to insult anybody that I should be delegating.
Yeah. Fast forward today, PWD has become quite a successful digital agency. Did you know back then how big you'd want to become and also where you're at now and how much further you want it to be?
No, I never had a particular number in mind in terms of employees or revenue or anything like that. But, my sole mantra in life has been, do well and have fun whilst you're doing it, right? And I think you can probably agree, I still do that to this day. And it was to provide opportunity for me to do other things, to hit. There wasn't a certain number I was trying to hit, or it wasn't for my own ego. It was to provide for the family and build a life and be able to buy property and do those certain things. Scaling to where I has been incredibly difficult and turbulent. We seem to have got there. You can't ever relax.
Yeah. I want to pick back up on the entrepreneurial seizure and entrepreneurial theme because, looking from the sidelines, I've admired seeing your entrepreneurialism. You've got your interest in a few things.
Yep.
How do you go about spreading your time amongst different interests? Because there's obviously some things will need more time than others. How do you manage that?
Look, I think it's probably in my DNA a little bit in the fact that I'm quite ADHD. So I like to be engaged. I'm a good communicator. I like to be on the phone a lot. I like to be finding out what's going on. I enjoy problem solving. I don't really see dramas as problems. I just see them as things you kind of got to get around. When I had, I guess, 4 businesses and a lot of staff, that did start to get pretty tiring and wear me down. I think provided you've got people in key positions that you implicitly trust and are on the same vision, it's all good. It gets very scary and it feels like being in a boat in stormy waters when you've got somebody who's in a key position and they're just fighting it or and I've had that and it's been horrible and it certainly took the fun out of it because to me business should be fun. It's definitely challenging. It's definitely long hours. It's definitely stressful. It can tire you out. You go home and you lay on the couch, your daughter wants to play and you just want to go to sleep, or just doom scroll. And you're always on, you don't stop. And I find myself going to work at the computer at, 3 o'clock in the morning because I'll wake up and I'll think of something and I'll go down and I will write an email, but I'll schedule it for 8 a.m. the next day so I don't look like a nutter. And that's just who I've been, and that's not for the faint-hearted. But I don't think anybody in business and entrepreneurs, at a reasonable level, is a normal person. There's no such thing as balance. Something has to be out of balance for you to operate at that level. And the hard part is when you are married or engaged or dating somebody and they think you should have life balance. That can get a bit tricky. We hear about gurus who talk about work-life balance and so on, but it doesn't exist.
It
doesn't exist.
It's a theory.
Like today, 6:30. I'm at Jandakot Airport. I've been down to Bustleton, Bunbury, Eton, flown back, landed, fixed the garage door, jumped in, had a shower, jumped in the car, and I've been at lunch in Mount Hawthorne. 1:30. And I've just left there, and I've rocked in, and I've sat down here. It's just go.
A day in the life of Ollie. Hey,
it's good fun. It's good fun, but some people look at it and probably think I'm nuts. Some people think, it's very glamorous. It's far from glamorous. It may look glamorous, but, it's everything's done for a reason.
I'm thinking if anyone is listening and, maybe starting a new venture, looking at, kicking off a new venture. In your journey, was there a point where maybe only in recent years or earlier where you could let go a bit, where maybe you had some middle-level management, some people, internal CFO or, a general manager or people where you could actually step back where your role could drop back from what you had to do where they could take that on, could actually step back and work more solely on rather than in?
Yeah, I'd say that's only been very recently, to be fair. With PWD, I think a major milestone for me was getting an assistant. That's that control thing. having, and then once they understand how you think and that delegation and allowing them to make their own decisions, take initiative, like, unless it's going to cost me or I'm going to get sued, crack on, basically, you're there to sort of take that stress away. That's been a big thing. It's been very rare prior to that I could go and leave, like I went to Mount Everest and then on the way back to Samui and not care about things too much. And if anything, the business went better without me. So maybe that's testament that I should leave more often. But prior to that, I felt very, I still feel very obligated, but I'm not necessarily as chained to my desk as I was. We've had some people off, especially in the sales team, and I've had to then step in and fill that role. But that's only been temporary. And with the other businesses, Majestic Stairs, as you know, we've got management in there that have skin in the game. They're not just employees. And it's just night and day. Like the impact that I just didn't realize how powerful that would be to give senior people like that some equity in business and they treat it like their own. And there's no noise. All the stress of that goes away. And it's a beautiful thing because you look at very successful people. If you look at anybody like the CEO of NVIDIA, he only owns 4% of it. That's nuts.
Small percentage of a big number.
A very big number. But somebody said, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone.
I like that.
So Jeff Bezos, I think he owns 9% of Amazon or something.
Lots of questions I've got for you, but I'll summarize them. I'll keep them short today. Anything you do differently? You've grown very fast. Worked extremely hard. We have some wins, we have some losses. We sometimes lose clients, lose staff. Is there anything particularly that comes to mind that you would have done differently in the... How long we got?
Done differently, yeah, for sure. Look, I think seeking out professional advice, perhaps not pulling the trigger on things as quick as I did, being as hasty as I did. I think when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I thought I was invincible, and I thought I was probably arrogant. I needed the stripes knocked off me. So I definitely needed to be made more humble, and the market/life will do that to you. And it did. And so I sort of was staring down the barrel of losing everything. It was a reset really. So, other than that, I think especially if you get to the stage that you've got multiple businesses and things going on, you look at that quite strategically and you're always trying to think 2 steps ahead. So I've always got a kind of backup plan for things. I probably wish I'd had my daughter earlier. I'm 40 and she's 4.5 and she can already outrun me. So I think probably not. There was a time there due to visa reasons I couldn't go back to the UK, couldn't see any of my extended family, and I feel like I've missed things in there. I missed a funeral, for example, so there's things there that I regret. Probably should have bought more property, I'd say, and had more security over, physical assets. But overall, no, I mean, that mentorship or advice or sounding board from external people, it was hard because before that really it was just my dad who was my old man. Problem is he's in a different country, he's highly conservative, he was born in 1955, so he sees things so differently and he's so conservative he would not take the same sort of risks that I have done. I think my curiosity and that nature has led me to things like Majestic Stairs, Renovation Capital, which was a business I ran for 4 years. But and I think when you do get things wrong or you lose a key account or you lose a key employee, I think the biggest thing is not to get emotional about it and try to move on pretty quick because that's not going to help anything. If you're dwelling on it, you're kind of pissed off and, you've got a bad mood and everybody comes in here and you affect the mood of the whole office because you're the boss and they can tell you're effed off.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that going to fix?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of, crack on and just, push on and go for the next thing.
Yeah.
And I said this so many times, offense beats defense. If you're in a competitive market and you find you're losing clients for a certain reason to a competitor that's cheaper, which we've seen, or you're losing competitors to technology, you're losing clients, to technology, AI, whatever it might be, is that you've got to come up with something to turn that tide.
Yeah.
Because it's, business, to be fair, is all out warfare.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. Every day.
Absolutely.
It's all out warfare. Yeah. Because if it's not other competitors trying to take clients of yours, it's technology or people doing it themselves, and that applies to so many industries these days. Yeah.
You made reference to your dad. I mean, it's sort of a little bit of a segue of getting advice. I mean, a little bit of a loaded question or statement here, but, as a business owner, the value of actually going and getting professional advice on various things, be it financial, tax, legal, other things.
It's huge. I guess, look, when it comes to lawyers, I haven't had a great experience. So, with professionals, it was quite hard to then trust people because you always think you're getting shafted, right? And but when you do find people that do the right thing, are actually for your best interest, don't just see you as a walking ATM.
Yeah.
And have that longer term thinking and are along for the bigger journey. And, you can see what the advice that they've then given you then play out and come to fruition, and either that work for you or what it potentially has saved you. Yes. Incredible. Yeah, so, and unfortunately, one of the first things when I was a 26-year-old and I met up with an accountant lawyer in Inglewood and asked for a shareholders agreement, which had a sort of I can walk out of this scot-free kind of clause, because I was going into business with two people I didn't know, and I'd paid them $5,000 or $6,000 for this agreement. Ends up being $100 template off the internet. You can understand why I was rather nervous about taking advice. So it's hard, and you don't know what you don't know, and you've got to probably admit that there's people in specialist roles that have got that experience and that viewpoint from just a different side. The only thing I'd probably say around accountants, and full disclosure, Stuart's an accountant, is that, of course, they're conservative. And so they wouldn't be perhaps as entrepreneurial, risk-taking as I would be. My risk appetite is clearly a lot higher than yours, but I'm a lot younger at the same time, right? And high energy, and I'm ready to go, and I'm balls to the wall every time. I'm all in. Because when I go for something, I go for something. And I don't know. It's like a calculated game of poker. Business when you're having a crack.
So, sadly, I've got to say, in our industry, and you would hear this, but too many people who would take a great idea or a concept they're about to explore, go and speak to their accountant, and they'll tell you 100 reasons why it won't work, and they'll almost burst the balloon. So we hope we're not that to anyone, but I do the Branson approach. Screw it, let's just do it. Type. You sort of trust your gut. I mean, and you've done that with obviously a number of your decisions. Get your advice, but you obviously make those decisions.
You do, and you've just got to plan for the worst. What's the worst that can happen, and then how can I avoid it, and can I put in some sort of fail-safe? If all shit goes wrong, is there a fail-safe? Can I just turn it off, get rid of it, sell it, or, and to be frank, I've got a childcare centre at the moment where I'm literally thinking that. When I first started it, I had stars in my eyes, and I thought this is going to be the greatest thing ever. It hasn't ended up being that way. I've now got to make a choice. Am I going to get into the mud and, fix it, turn it around, deal with all the, the pain, pus and pain that's going to come with it? Or do I just put it on the market, get my money back and move on? But it's pay to play, right? At least I've got a player on the table and I've got that choice. I'd much rather that than being micromanaged by somebody and told what to do.
I've seen it with clients where it's literally all the sweat equity that's gone into that, and it's like trying to sell one of their children. So it's another tough decision.
And you can't. You've got to be non-emotional. You've got to make a choice, yes or no, and you've got to live with the consequences. Because the stakes are high. there's like $400,000, $500,000 my own money in that business, at least. And there's pride because I've told everybody I've set it up and I've done it. So all my peers, and then I don't want to be considered a failure. If I was to sell it, oh, why'd you sell that? Well, I couldn't make it work. You know, it's a bit of embarrassment. So you've got that kind of eating away at you. And, you know, I've got to make a decision pretty quickly because I prepaid my rent for 8 months. Well, that's up fairly soon. And all of a sudden I've got a fairly decent, well, a very large chunk of money I've got to pay each month. And so it's do or die. And it's the stress, the time, the distraction of kind of, the higher you get, you know, it's funny, the problems and the decisions that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis just get more extreme. And stuff that used to stress me 10, 15 years ago, I'm like, you know, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even, like, it's not even on register. Not even on the Richter scale.
Well, look, I realise we've got to wrap things up soon. I suppose just to recap a few things you've shared, I'd love to just sort of summarise. Certainly, entrepreneurial seizure. Making that break. A lot of guts in doing that. Obviously, funding and getting that established. Hiring decisions. Facing some setbacks, and I suppose that tenacity. I'll use that word.
Grit.
Getting good advice. Grit. It's getting good advice, but also trusting your gut and backing yourself to do that. So
and that's definitely if I could rewind time, if I had a remote, I could go backwards. There's a very key moment, and I remember it to the day that I wish I'd just called and either spoken to a financial advisor, an accountant, or a lawyer at that point, because it would have changed the course of my life and saved me a lot of pain. If I'd done so. So anybody that I guess is faced with a big decision, employees, whatever it is, it seems massive at the time, just go get a sanding board. And if you've got to pay for it, pay for it. It's, man, what it can save you. In my case, it would have probably saved me $2 million.
Well, Ollie, thank you for sharing a bit about yourself and your story. It's been a personal interest of mine as I've been watching the sidelines. So thanks for the opportunity. Some great tips I hope is of help to someone out there.
Stay safe.
Thanks very much.